What's up, world? So I figured out a lot, and it's very important that I share this with the world because it's kind of sad when somebody is kind of I don't know how to say one of those forgotten prophets that didn't get to forget. Just everything kept clicking. Well, let me just tell you one thing. Growing up in Pebble Beach, I've seen so many things, and my father. We've seen things that were not like the regular man-made stuff, alien type stuff in the sky. And one time alone when I was homeless, I saw a huge orange spaceship, and it was so big, it like, say you draw a picture where you show like something like a stadium or something, and a person looks like he's gonna be like a certain size to it, but then he's way smaller, like next to it. You know how that picture is, where the thing looks like, oh, it's pretty massive, but then you look, where's the guy, and he's like so tiny, he's down there, and it's like, what? Like you would think he was like this big, but he's all the way down there. It was like that type of description when I was at the estuary, like right on the side of one little parking near like where the helicopter area is. That right there tripped me out because the spaceship, as I called it, looks so much like a human rocket, kind of, but like instead of going up with like the levels, it was like sideways, more like the cigar as they call it, and it had those little lights beeping on it, like if it was like a regular place where it's like, as I was looking at it and I'm like, what the hell? And it was for a second, it was like between 12, 2, I don't know what, but when I finally was like, using the restroom, Mother Nature just number one, and I was standing up, as I am supposed to, or like I was looking at like, huh? And the thingy really just disappeared, like behind a blanket, like if the portal was like sideways, and I went, and I didn't see no, I did not see anything left, any like there's no wind, there's no warp tunnel, nothing other than just it's gone. And I was like, what? And I was back in the car. I was like, whoa. And I always followed Ancient Aliens. I've always followed History Channel and all this different stuff that led me to understand a great belief of what is real and what isn't real. Many times people thought I was talking crap just because, sadly, when I didn't understand religions, which also I'm against on certain parts, and it hurts because people are like, oh, now he's talking about religions. I don't mean to offend. My granny was Catholic. My grandma didn't want to be Catholic. She stopped being Catholic. So I'm descendant of Catholic. But I don't like the fact that so many people have been abused and tortured, whether it was today, uh, you know, people that churches have always, uh, hung and burned people. Like in the old days when they didn't understand that medicine was, helping people, they just were like, that's witchery, that's the devil, kill them, taking their info and then having it stored with other people, And it's crazy how the truth unfolds because it is so crazy that in USA, as I love USA, I love my citizens, my neighbors, it's still not right that we had to go through this brainwash, the manipulation through so many years. People wanted to say, is Jesus real? Is Jesus fake? Well, let me tell you, Jesus is real. And I'm going to tell you the proof of today because I've always honored him by saying, I don't know if he's real, but if he is, he's my older brother. When they said, did Jesus have brothers? I looked into it, even after I heard some stories he had like a sister and stuff like that. Well, they're all trying to say, he just had brothers in spirit. So that makes a lot of sense because it helped me crack down this truth. Now, yesterday, I was playing with my kitchen knife, but I always keep it in my room because I was always kind of fearful for a lot of things. It's just safety, and you gotta have a couple weapons. You're throwing tomahawks, stuff like that. And when I was throwing it in the air yesterday, I sliced my finger when I caught it. You see that? This knife caught it with a blade instead of the handle because I was off a little bit. But With that being said, I was able to see the blood and put one drop on the floor in front of my bed. And also, if you look at my TikTok, I mean, I've been trying to discover stuff for quite a bit. If you look at my Instagram, I've been trying to figure out life a bit, and I was always struggling, homeless. So, with a lot of traumas, beating and families hurting and separating and me just being alone most of the time, but also, not only was I alone most of the time, but for one, I've gotten people lots of jobs. My nephew, his first job, for instance, my niece, I helped her ride her bike. Like the first time, it only took like 3 little tries in like 5 minutes. She was already done. Like she's all, look, mom, I'm all happy. Not even worried about that. It was so beautiful. Um, Other people in life, I've got so many people jobs uh, in San Diego, and later on, I just stuck to myself because the struggle was real. COVID was real. Father always taking no blame instead of taking half the blame, or just being ashamed and blaming the kids. That's sad on his part, but he did try very hard in the beginning. He had groceries, but he never got his clothes. So like one memory I remember, those who remember me from Imperial Beach, IB Elementary, that's where I had to deal with like a little bit of picking on, Blanca, Shantae, Gina, there was Mary, Christina. There was a bunch of other people, but Mary and Christina didn't do anything. They were actually really nice, very, very, very beautiful. They were all that were, but still, I always were like, they were just so gorgeous when I was that little. But I won't tell you what everyone's up to today. I just seen one or two here and there, but everybody, they're like me. They all struggled. They all had to deal with manipulation, people treating them wrong, people being abusive, people getting away with, hurting their feelings or physically. There's too much stuff like that on the scandal part where nobody has liability to help the citizens. So that's one thing right there that made me crack down. A long time ago, I cared about somebody, and I still do. She, my bestie at heart. So I wanted to figure out so much about God and where we go after life, and a lot of things were important. Plus, I'm part Navajo and Spanish descendant, and Coach Mia also. So there's some wisdom that lies in you because, of course, through generation, or, going down the tree, you're always going to have stuff that's programmed in you originally. And then you're going to have to get programmed when you're a baby getting taught, what's wrong and right. You're not typing anything, you're not putting no beta, but it is the same as teaching your children, like don't do that, don't do this and that. Well, there was a lot of crazy stuff that happened as far as my dad being a single parent and not being responsible enough. Having a huge box of adult movies really, really messed up my mind as a little boy because me being the youngest, there's been a couple things that were kind of like really a mistake, but at the same time, like, I should have never gone through it. Um, little shit like that. Like, it's crazy. So, that type of stuff, I've always tried to do my best, to work hard. And when I lost my bestie in 2017, it really, really hurt. And we were, always talking on the phone for a bit on and off. And then later on in life, I was just devastated, But I always cared for her, and I hope she's okay wherever she's at. And on my TikTok, I explained a couple things, but it's not getting out there fast enough, So I'm like, okay, let me go to YouTube. Let's see if it's worldwide or if I'm gonna get shut down for this. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but Jesus is real because after already figured out that God is Mother Earth, because that's the only place we could stay around, We never fell from grace. Grace just changed because how so much pollution is out there. How many people are mistreating people. Pretty much in that biblical sense, people are demons instead of angels because of how ruthless the world is. When you talk about pharmaceuticals, I don't care if there's anybody that's in power or like assassinate him. Hey, I'm ready to, give my heart for the world. And I already cracked down a lot of that, So a lot of the world is hurting because of sex trafficking, uh, drugs, and of course, what drugs are pharmaceuticals. Whether it's the stuff that gets over the border, stuff that's made in the U.S. by some scientists, writer, biker, which sadly, if I wanted to be that world, they made the best stuff, or that way they made the best stuff. But still, all that stuff is not the same as it used to be. Now, I heard a rumor that, for instance, speed was, you know, the use of it was put in a movie called Limitless, where it gets you super smart, it gets you from here to there, but after a couple of days or something, you cramp out. Now, in my days of hurting, it's my sisters and baby mama that when they had issues when I was growing up, when I tried to back them up, my dad become my enemy because I was like the youngest kid, but becoming the biggest, warrior. I stood up against him and always try to, be cool, but it's messed up how violent and angry he gets when he doesn't get his way. And sadly, my sister got that same trait, but she's working on losing it. So as soon as me and her interact, I was kind of feeling that same feeling, and I'm like, dude, I'm not like him. You need to stop acting like him. So that's something different. But what I want to say is I'm working on a lot of understanding, because you gotta be understanding, you gotta care. And when someone does you wrong, you might give them a chance or two, but if the cops don't care about the report, as far as the ones that came that time saying, hey, people were probably trying to smoke fentanyl here, which I don't allow. They're like, yeah, we'll take a report, check your vitals, and then we're leaving. Like, you didn't care about the report of the people you need to go track down and investigate, none of that. They didn't care about that. They just like, what are we doing? We're just here to hold the peace. Well, it makes no sense when you're saying you're trying to hold the peace when really everyone's not at peace. You have citizens always having home burglaries and getting robbed on the streets, people that are hurting so bad that they're still selling to each other, and people are going from these drugs and that to, like, saying, for instance, fentanyl, and fentanyl's killing everyone in the USA. Why is fentanyl getting put in every single thing now? It's because USA, sadly, our citizens, a lot of us are expected to have strong bodies to do as we're told, but we're not supposed to have strong minds to think right and say that's wrong instead of right. So this type of information is dangerous in that sense that, we have the Illuminati. I can't really say it, but if they're watching, I'm not scared of you. I'll take you on one by one if you came at me violently and you were the type of people that want to shut people up from knowing the truth. God is with me, and I'll return to God, which is the earth, because, you don't go to heaven above like how we're meant to believe. We go back to the soil in which we make the soil rich. We're trying to cleanse the world so we live proper with good spirits, positive demeanor and attitude, love for each other. But the one thing I do live by is if I do something wrong, I expect to get disciplined. If somebody does someone else wrong, they should get disciplined. If police don't want to take your report and help you out, and you're a person that's way smaller and weaker than me, then a shame on them, because you're not weak for any other reason than physical. Mentally, you're strong. You're a person that deserves to have justice. We all deserve justice. And this ain't just about USA. When I talk about sex trafficking, why is it that a lot of our people are always showing up in movies like, for instance, Taken? A little young woman that wanted to go to Europe, she gets taken by one of those hardcore big associations, the father has to track them down. If you go to Arabic countries, why is there so much gold? The ones that we are, buddies with, In my case, this is what I call it. Too many bullies that are taking over people's lands, It started back as far as, like, holy nights, And I don't go against anybody that wants to go to church, because over here, we have little churches, but the way that the money goes and flows, and like the main churches of where they came from get most of the money, and they just keep building higher. It's not right, while a lot of people are suffering left and right all around the world. Now, when you talk about uh, serial killers and murders, where did they originate from? Well, I remember my history. It originated from UK, London. How many serial killers were running the streets killing people? I remember one in particular. You remember like Jack the Ripper? You know, that type of stuff. Like, you know what I mean? All right, I forgot if that's his name, but still, let me think about it real quick.